What do Madonna, Adolf Hitler, and Kanye West all have in common? The answer is that they are all narcissists. Narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, is a mental disorder where the subject has an inflated sense of self-importance, a lack of empathy, and a deep need for admiration. Some narcissistic traits are a grandiose sense of self-importance, a sense of entitlement, the need for constant praise or admiration, a sense of grandeur, exploiting others without shame or guilt, and frequently demeaning, belittling, and bullying others. Some famous narcissists are Adolf Hitler, a tyrant with an overwhelming sense of grandeur; Madonna, who has said herself that her need to be the center of attention has been part of her success; Kanye West, who, if you know anything about, is pretty obvious; and Ted Bundy, a serial killer who would lure his victims in through his grandiose personality. And these are just a few from a long list of many. Narcissism started out as a Greek myth. The story of Narcissus, yes, that is where the name comes from, is quite lengthy with multiple myth crossovers, so here's the gist of what happened. Narcissus was a young man who was notorious for his good looks. However, wherever he went, he left a trail of broken hearts, as he only showed disdain and contempt for maidens trying to win his heart. One day, while hunting, he stopped by a body of water and saw his reflection. He became so entranced and enthralled with his own reflection that he forgot about food and water. He would stare, longing to have and hold this person, so he stayed there and withered away from his starvation and thirst. But who is Sigmund Freud? Sigmund Freud was an Australian neurologist, famous for founding and developing theories and techniques of psychoanalysis. Freud's personality theory is what we'll be focusing on. Freud's personality theory states that a person's personality is split into three parts: the id, the ego, and the superego. Each one of these parts has its own motive, and like this iceberg, there are some parts that we don't see. Id, also known as it, the most instinctual of the group, is the pleasure-seeking part of your brain. Id is compulsive and unconscious. It is not affected by reality or logic. If id is able to achieve its demands, then we are rewarded with pleasure. However, if id is denied its demands, that often creates tension or displeasure. Ego is a mediator between id and the external world. Ego seeks pleasure like id, but is concerned about more realistic plans to do so. However, ego is weak compared to id. Ego is analogous with a man riding on horseback. All he can do is hold id's superior strength in check. Ego, to put it very simply, is the self-control of one's impulses. Superego, also known as above I, is based off values and morals that we have learned from our parents and others. It is also superego's job to control id's impulses, especially ones that society forbids. Superego has two parts: the conscience and the ideal self. Conscience can punish ego through feelings of guilt for giving into its demands. Ideal self is the imaginary picture of how we ought to be in society. This represents career aspirations, how to treat others, and how to be a functioning member of society. Any behavior that falls short of ideal self can lead to feelings of guilt, but we can also be rewarded with the feeling of pride when we do act properly. Okay, now that we're done with that flood of knowledge, we can talk about how narcissism fits into this iceberg diagram. Now, it's hard to pinpoint exactly where narcissism happens in this model, but you could argue that all the narcissistic traits happen in different areas. So, now that all of that is out of the way, how does this relate to you, the viewer? Well, I'm sorry to say this, but you are a narcissist. Well, kind of. Technically, so is everybody. Let me explain. Everyone at some point in their life displays narcissistic traits, whether it be doing outrageous things to receive admiration and praise, or constant social media posts to tell everyone what you're doing at that very second. Yes, good for you, but I did not need to know that. Two-Way Protocol, an art piece by Zane Miller, is a good representation of our everyday narcissism. Two-Way Protocol was an art piece in the 2017 Art Prize in Grand Rapids. It consisted of two hanging cubes made from one-way mirrors. When a subject would step inside of the cube, they would only see themselves. This represents how we can't see past ourselves to the others in the room. So what can be done about this modern narcissism? Well, first thing to be aware of is that it can't be fully eradicated, like smallpox or the plague. Narcissism is a part of human nature. What we can do is mastering the control of the ego, maximizing our self-control. The next step would be reflecting upon ourselves. When have you displayed narcissism? Most people can do this by meditating or contemplating. And finally, we can flip its demands into generosity for others. Volunteer passing out food at a homeless shelter, or maybe just be there for someone in need. If you're still curious about narcissism, or just want to read about narcissists or Freud, I've linked some sources in the description below.